So this is the Young Dementia Network webinar, and today we're focusing on festivity, hints and tips for the festive season. You have to have a glow in your heart and a twinkle about you in spite of the weather, I think, for this. We have a lovely panel today. I shall hand to Claire in a moment, but first to say that the panel will be visible and we can hear them throughout, but attendees won't be visible and are on mute throughout. So please do, if you want to participate, use the chat function freely, use the Q&A function, all to the good. So in no further ado, mug of tea in hand, of course, I'm going to hand over to Claire, who's going to take us through some of the tips.
Hi, yeah, so welcome everybody to our this web-based discussion on tips and ideas and hints for the festive season. So we've called it Festivi-tea, so I hope you've got your cup of tea or coffee in your hand, and I hope that you've also got a piece of Christmas cake because it's coming up to Christmas, and if you live in Yorkshire you've probably got a piece of cheese with it. If you've not, why not? We always eat Christmas cake with cheese. So yeah, I'm Clare Mason and I'm a dementia care trainer and also the patient and public involvement lead at University of Bradford. So I work with our experts by experience who are made up of people living with dementia and their families who work with us at the Centre for Applied Dementia Studies. I'm also a volunteer facilitator with a lovely band of other volunteers for the Pathways Young Onset Support Group. And now you might have heard us talk earlier that we're based in Bradford, but with the beauties of technology, we've managed through the deep network connections mostly, and the Young Onset, the Young Dementia UK connections, to gain some lovely new members that live much further afield. And that has been one of the great things to come out of the coronavirus restrictions, that through using technology to meet, we've now got some lovely new members that we would never have come into contact with, and of course we all learn from one another, so we feel really lucky to do that. So the Pathways group is a young onset peer support group for people that developed start with the symptoms of dementia at working age. So although some of our members are now a little bit older, they're all very much young at heart, which is a bit of a corny phrase, but it is true. And we also support the family members of people living with young onset dementia. And you'll see we've got Kit with us, who's supporting his wife, Julie. So we used to meet monthly, face to face. And now we meet weekly, at least weekly, on Zoom. We also used to hold regular social activities such as trips to the pub, trips to the theatre, restaurants, bowling, and other activities that were chosen by the group. All the sorts of things that younger people like to do, and many more. We used to do those, and we also hold an annual supported holiday. And as you can imagine, this year it's been cancelled 3 times. And I think next year is possibly being put back to the summer instead of the spring. But we've been doing that for about 20 years. We're quite a long-running group. And the holidays have been really successful. So another thing that's happened through lockdown is that we created a WhatsApp group. So people connect with one another through our WhatsApp group, remind each other that there's a meeting, or support each other when they're feeling low. And we also send out weekly craft packs or activity packs to people. So they're created by one of our fabulous volunteers, Sue. She sends them out in the post, and then on WhatsApp she posts a little video that has us all in stitches, because she's got a fabulous Yorkshire accent that she competes with me in that front. And she posts videos on how to carry out those craft activities. So I realise, as I've not got my WhatsApp app working this week, that there was one posted on how to make a Bailey's cheesecake. So yeah, I'm going to get onto that. So that's a bit about the group and what we do and how we keep connected through the restrictions of the pandemic. But if it's okay with our panellists, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. So if it's okay, if you unmute yourself, and I'm going to say your name and ask you to introduce yourself in the order that you are on my screen. So first of all, it's Julie H, Julie Hayden, because we've got two Julies. So Julie, are you all right to unmute and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Julie. I live over in Halifax. So not one of the Bradford bunch. Although I've got to know the others over a period of time. I was diagnosed over 3 years ago at the age of 54, and I know some of us through connecting through pathways in our online group, and also some of us are members of the Experts by Experience group at the university, which is also run by Clare.
Thanks, Julie, and that's great. Thank you for mentioning our Experts by Experience group. That's brilliant. And yeah, you're based in Halifax, aren't you, which is not too far from Bradford. So we do get the pleasure of meeting with you face to face when we're allowed to. Thanks, Julie. And next on my screen is Kit and Julie. So are you okay, Kit, to unmute and introduce yourselves?
Well, thank you. I should be unmuted anyway.
You are.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Kit.
Right, we're Kit and Julie. We're from the Pathways group in Bradford. We also live in Bradford, or just in the outskirts of Bradford. We've been married for 50 years this month, or last month, shall I say. And Julie was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment approximately 10 years ago. And that diagnosis changed to Alzheimer's just over 2 years ago. So we actually support each other. It's just not me supporting Julie. Julie supports me as well.
Yeah.
And we also get fantastic support from the Pathways group. And we're all one big happy family.
Oh, thanks, Kit. And hi, Julie.
Hi, love.
Hiya. Julie's one of our, and Kit, one of our film stars, aren't you? The deep films that people might want to watch. So the Deep Moments films.
Yeah.
You showed off your dancing skills in City Hall in Bradford, didn't you?
She did.
Did I really?
You
God,
did.
I didn't realise I'd done that.
Oh, you were amazing. Thanks, Kit and Julie. And next on my screen is the lovely Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, can you unmute and introduce yourself, please?
I don't know how to mute, darling.
Oh, well, you're all right. We can hear you.
I'm Marie Norris. I live down in Kent, near Margate, Canterbury area. I've got vascular dementia. I met Clare while I was helping a PhD student with his, what do they call it? Dissertation. I use that word because the other one sounds like something you shouldn't say. Like, I've been a member of Forget Me Nots down in Herne Bay for 5 years. It's 8 years it's been running. I know Rachel. I've met Rachel several times and different things and that. And Claire invited me to join your group in Bradford because she saw me interact with Paul, bless him.
Yeah. That's right, and you keep us all entertained, Anne-Marie, don't you?
I keep what, love?
You keep us entertained.
Do I? Oh.
Too, yeah.
Well, I don't know about that.
Thanks, Anne-Marie, that's lovely. And last but not least,
I'll never forget. Oh, sorry.
it's all right. Last but not least, we've got our Michael. Michael, are you okay to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Michael, living in Bradford, as you can tell from my accent. I was diagnosed with a rare form of dementia, PCA, in June 2017. I've been a member of Pathways, I think about 2.5 years now.
Oh, yeah, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also a member of the Experts by Experience at Bradford University.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, and for anybody that's not sure, PCA is posterior cortical atrophy, so it's quite a rare type of dementia, isn't it?
I'm glad you said it, because I always struggle with the last word.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for that. So in the run up to Christmas, as you do in our group support, peer support group meetings, we started to talk about, Christmas was looming, and about the festive season and how difficult it can sometimes be for all of us, but particularly if you live with dementia or you're supporting someone who lives with dementia. And also, I think, for other family members. So we had a couple of discussions over 2 meetings, and then we put together some ideas, thoughts and tips of how we might make the best of the festive season and make it as stress-free as we can for everyone, but particularly for people living with dementia and their families. Of course, our group is for people diagnosed with young onset dementia, so people diagnosed at working age. And I think that, there's often a lot of expectation when somebody's younger, because usually, as you can see with our group, people don't look ill. Dementia is quite a hidden illness. So there's a lot of expectation for people to, get things right and do what's expected of us. And it's often very difficult, very stressful. So I'm going to go through some of our slides and talk to you about, some of the things that the group came up with. And also I might ask certain people to just tell us a bit more about it as we go along, because the group members that are here now were involved in the discussion. And of course, my mouse isn't working. Oh, there we go. So the first one we've got, and Michael, this was particularly yourself. So we came up with shop, don't drop. So shopping can be challenging at the best of times for the best of us. And the changing COVID rules are making things more difficult this year. But also the festive season changes things at Christmas. So, Michael, I don't know if you are okay to share with us some of your thoughts on Christmas and the shops and some of the difficulties that you had.
Well, I'll be honest. Shopping for me, I'm going to sound like Grinch or Scrooge. I've actually got now. I don't look forward to Christmas.
Oh.
I do know that what it's all about. It's the problem is, because I live on my own, and then you go into the town, and it's just total chaos. Mm-hmm. The shops are absolutely packed solid. I've even seen people fighting over the shelves, trying to get in, push in to grab stuff, and I just can't deal with it.
Yeah.
But then the other issue I have with PCA, a lot of times it's hard to describe. It's how do you say to somebody you can see something and at the same time you can't see it? Mm. So if there's a lot of stuff all cluttered together, which you get at Christmas, all boxes and presents, and I just can't work out what they're supposed to be.
Yeah, so the real visual aspects cause problems, don't they? And yeah, and I know that we talked about how things are moved around the store, aren't they, to make way for the Christmas goods. So, you know, if you want to buy an ordinary greetings card, it's hard to find it because they've all been squashed together.
Well, that's actually the problem as well, because the shops has done it now. Granted, they've got to move stuff around because they're bringing in new stuff for Christmas.
Mm.
But for me, you get used to where the stuff is, and then you go in, they've shifted it all. And then you're having to start from scratch. You don't know where to start to look for stuff. And I'm sure people must think that I've lost the plot. I just stand in the middle of the aisle because I can't work out where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, that must be really, you know, distressing and off-putting, you know. And I imagine that, you know, it's hard, isn't it? Because you do live on your own. And one of the things I know you've talked to me about is that you like to go into the town and do your own shopping. And as I've met you in town prior to lockdown, you're what I call well known as the bellman, and everybody in Bradford knows you and looks out for you. So it must be really difficult when it's so different and so busy.
To be honest, that I do know I've actually got now. I don't like to be where there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's to do with COVID or whether it's the dementia side is starting to affect me more.
Yeah.
I just can't be around people. But the funny thing is, I seem okay outside. You know, there'll be a lot of people outside. I'm okay. But the minute I go in through a door and into a building, into the shop or anywhere, it all seems claustrophobic to me. I just can't cope with it.
Yeah, yeah. So thanks, Michael. And one of the things the group came up with was try to shop at quieter times. And I know that during, you know, the lockdown or the restrictions of COVID, that some shops have put on a quiet time for people that might have hidden disabilities or special needs or just need to shop at that more peaceful time. And, you know, like you've mentioned, Michael, we also thought that if you can avoid busy shops, it's much better. And I guess that's okay, depending on where you live. We also thought that doing your shopping in bite-sized chunks, so don't go for a huge big shop and put pressure on yourself. Go for, you know, a few items and then perhaps, you know, recharge your batteries, have a day at home, and then another day go again and get another few items. And we also thought about, you know, having the sunflower lanyard. I think a couple of people in our group, Michael, you've used the sunflower lanyard, haven't you?
I do, yeah. I actually find, I don't want to brag about the shop, but Marks and Spencer's are absolutely brilliant with a lanyard with me.
Yeah.
You put it on, and as I say, where I was starting in the middle of the aisle, confused, one of the staff will see me, and they actually, some of them know me by my name, and they'll, oh, Michael, what's up? I don't know where you've put the milkers. Oh no, come with us. We'll show you around. So
the lanyard really does make a difference for you, doesn't it?
And I also find, you know, when you get to the till, because Marks and Spencer's in Bradford, the food section's not really a massive big shop. And you go in and say they've a couple of tills on, and then they've got the self-service tills. Mm-hmm. Well, I just can't use the self-service tills. Mm. And I'll be starting with my basket in the queue to get to the till. And one of the staff will come and say, oh, come with me, Michael, I'll do it for you. And yeah, they'll actually scan it, put it in the bag, and then all I have to do is pay for it.
That's really good feedback there, yeah. And I don't know if people can see, but this is the sunflower lanyard. And these, you can get these off the Hidden Disabilities website, but I think some shops give them out, Michael, don't they?
Well, I actually got, Marks and Spencer's actually give me mine free.
That's brilliant, and I know.
But I had to prove to them that I had a disability.
All right.
And what I used was, I've got a card which says I've got PCA dementia. and then it gives a breakdown of what might happen. And as soon as I showed that, she says, no, that's okay. You just take it free.
Oh, right, that's good. Good to know. Thanks for that. So yeah, and then we also thought, so as well as using the sunflower lanyard, the other thing is about, you know, give money, not vouchers, and particularly this year, lots of shops, unfortunately, are going out of business, or vouchers are not valid. And, you know, people with dementia, particularly people who live on their own and don't have that family support, might not realise that a shop's gone out of business and a voucher's going to run out of date. Or also, there is, as Michael mentioned, some shops are more helpful and more accessible than others. So you might buy a voucher for a shop that's not actually the most accessible to a person with dementia. So if you give a person money, then at least they can save it, they can spend it on what they like at a time that suits them without worrying about an expiry date. So now we move on to how difficult it can be for people to recognise faces, remember names, if you're living with young onset dementia. So give us a clue. You know, it's not a test. Try and give us some helpful hints as to who you are. Introduce yourself, even if you're a family member. And it might feel really strange at first to introduce yourself to somebody that's been a member of your family for 50 years. But actually, it's not that strange if you've got problems recognising faces and remembering names. And you can do things like, hi, Auntie Marie, it's me, Claire, your favourite niece. You know, you can make light of it, but you can drop in that useful clue that might help somebody just grasp onto who you are. Julie Hayden, have you got any thoughts on recognising faces, remembering names?
I find that they're difficult. I'm quite okay usually at recognising people, but my difficulty is if I see someone out of context. So maybe it's someone who I will see lots of times before, but maybe I'll have seen them within sort of the context of seeing a particular group or a meeting that I usually go to, or that I see in my dementia advocacy work. And then, but they'll come up to me in the street and they'll say, "Oh, hi, Julie." And I'm looking at them thinking, yeah, I know I should know that person. But, you know, the fact that they are from a certain organisation and I've met them during that voluntary work that I do means that I have a disconnect of who is that person, where do I know them from? But they kind of assume that because they've met me several times before, that I'm going to know who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, back to that expectation that people do expect us to know who they are. And I get exactly what you're saying about when people are out of context, how it's hard. Yeah, thanks, Julie. And I think it must be even more distressing and stressful all round, not just for the person with dementia, but for perhaps family members if someone's struggling to remember the name of a member of a family, especially if it's a fairly close member of a family. As we came up with here, that you might not have seen that person, that member of your family or a friend for a while. And Christmas and the festive season, so Easter, Diwali, Eid, etc., they're times when we tend to get together, but we might not have seen each other much in between. And for instance, there's often, you know, children around at these festive periods, and they change and grow up really quickly. We had our team Zoom Christmas party today, and a couple of members of staff had their children on screen, and I couldn't believe how some of them had changed, and it's not that long since I saw them. Children really do grow quickly, don't they? And hairstyles and fashions change. And these days, you know, people have all kinds of colours in their hair. One day it might be long with extensions, the next day it might be short. So it's no surprise that somebody who's struggling to put names to faces has difficulty remembering who somebody is. And family members, we talked about this in the group, didn't we? That family members often resemble other family members. And, you know, I've got 2 boys, and some people think my sons look really alike, and other people just can't see it. But often, you know, particularly an older member of the family might mistake a younger person for someone, you know, their sister or brother or whatever. But similarly, people with dementia might just make that really easy mistake. And also, you know, you can feel really under pressure when you're in company to remember names and faces. Again, back to that, you know, there's a lot of pressure on us to remember, lots of expectation. So, you know, give people a clue, drop your name into your introduction, your hello. Tell the person when you saw them last, and, you know, give them a clue about where you're from, you know, what relation you are in the family. As I said, it might feel embarrassing to a relative that doesn't have dementia, but it might be an absolute godsend to the person that's struggling to recall who somebody is. So we've got keep the lights on, and in Yorkshire we talk about the big light. So I'm not sure if people know what I mean by the big light, but, you know, it's usually the room, the main light in your room that, you know, gives the best light. So we talk about keep the big light on. So good lighting can make a really big difference for people with dementia who may have visual and spatial issues. So they might have difficulties, like Michael mentioned, working out what's what, picking out items from a crowded shelf, working out what's in front of them, and also working out the distance between them and an object, so where they are in space. That can be really difficult, and if there's low light, it can make it even more difficult. So at Christmas as well, we know we all like to trim up. I mean, I don't do it till Christmas Eve if I can help it. But people put those twinkly fairy lights up. Some of them, they twinkle on and off, or they go in time with music. And that can be really distressing for people with dementia, especially, you know, if you're trying to communicate with someone and it's in, the twinkly lights are in your eye line, it can be quite off-putting. I love candles. Everybody knows I love candles, especially the ones that smell nice. But I know that they can be difficult for people with dementia because, you know, if you've got visual difficulties and they flicker, and again, they're in your eye line, they can be quite off-putting as well. And again, especially if you're trying to communicate and have a conversation and you can see this flickering light in your eye line, it can create headaches and visual disturbances. So make it easy for people to see clearly. As I said, it helps them to communicate better. It helps them to see what someone's trying to say to them, and also helps them to feel that they're being heard as well. And so, as I said, keep the main light on so that people can see their food, they can see, you know, what's in front of them, they can see that lovely glass of wine that you've put out for them, and more importantly, that they can find their way to the toilet. So I don't know whether any of our panel have difficulties with lighting.
No, don't bother.
You don't bother you, Julie. That's good, isn't it?
No.
Yeah. Somebody wants to speak?
That's me, darling. Me, darling. Look, I got my card.
Oh,
I found my card. Yeah, I find that if the telly's on or music's on and I'm trying to concentrate as well, because any distraction when you're trying to talk to somebody and you're trying to perhaps pick up tips as to who the bloody hell they are, right? You know, because sometimes if you meet someone and they're not where they should be, you see, you get this here, I know you, but I don't know what you are or what you are or where you're from, because you're not where you should be, or you're not wearing the uniform that you should do. So any distraction I find is off-putting.
Yeah, and it's a really good point. I mean, I often go to my friend's house, and you can get music channels on the TV now, so we'll put music on the television. But of course, if you were there at that time, we'll sit around and chat and have a glass of wine, listening to the music on the television. But of course, the videos are playing in the background as well, so you've got those moving images. So that's a really helpful point there, Anne-Marie. Thank you.
Can I just say, for 2 years now, I haven't put any decorations up in the house.
Really?
I didn't put any up last year, and I'm not putting any up this year. Again, it's because Christmas lights affect me.
Really?
You know, the lights on a tree, even outside. If there's a tree up outside, flashing lights actually trigger something with me. It has an effect on me.
How would you describe then? How does that affect you, Michael?
I start to get confused because it doesn't look. It's not natural. It doesn't look right. And I start getting confused.
Yeah.
Would be right. Yeah.
Thanks, Michael. Did Julie want to say something, Kate?
No, she was just saying that would be frightening.
Absolutely.
And concerning. Yeah. So we can understand, the issue that Michael and other people have got with that.
Yeah, that'd be scary, Julie, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
It could well be.
I think so. Yeah, thanks. I think that
we're all right other than that.
All right, yeah. But I think that's really enlightening, isn't it? That, what Michael's just said. So it helps us to have those examples, I think, especially for people that don't experience those sorts of problems. So now we go on to prezzies. So exchanging gifts. Unwrapping gifts and recognising the contents can be a real issue for people with dementia. So working out what's inside, working out how to open it. And again, that expectation, people are watching you open the present. They want you to say, oh, it's just what I always wanted. And it can be really tricky. Excuse me while I choke. Has anybody in our panel had difficulty when they're receiving presents?
Yeah. I think you're right, Claire, where somebody's trying to open a present and it's wrapped too well. So you're literally trying to tear off paper around the sellotape. If it's wrapped very, very simply, people can get into it quicker. But then just for somebody to say, here you go, Julie, this is the jumper that you always wanted. And then they know what is actually coming, rather than thinking, I wonder what this is, when everybody's focusing on that person. And then there's the embarrassment of what do they say or who do they thank for that item.
Absolutely. And yeah, you've mentioned some really good points there. So, a simple piece of tissue paper and one piece of sticky tape can do that simple wrapping. Or pop it in a gift bag and don't staple down the top that, like some people do. We need to make it as easy as possible for people, don't we? So that there aren't any embarrassments. So yeah, as you said, Kit, keeping the wrapping simple and give the person a clue as to what's in it. Yeah, tell them what it is. Or, you wanted that jumper, didn't you? And it's your favourite colour. And I got it from Marks and Spencer's because I know you like it.
Yeah.
Give some clues. It's not a test. We don't want people to fail. It's supposed to be a really lovely, fun time. And I think sometimes if things, if people are put on the spot and do feel embarrassed, it can spoil the whole couple of hours that they're there or the whole occasion. And again, make sure you pass it to them the right way up, because otherwise, there can be some disasters. So thank you.
Are we going to move?
No, we're just saying this first.
We won't be long, Julie. Are you okay?
Yes, love, thanks.
Oh, thank you. You do humour me, don't you?
Everybody else does.
Oh, I know. What would I do without you? So we've got here, give me time. So the festive period might feel frenetic for people with dementia, and where possible, try to slow things down. It's not a race. So give the person with dementia time to hear your questions, so time to hear what you're saying to them, and then time to process what you've said and make sense of what you've said. So time to take in the question or, you know, the comment, time to do something with it, think about what it is that you've actually said, time to think of an answer, and then formulate a sentence. So time to put the words together and a chance to get those words out. Julie, Hayden, have you got any thoughts on, you know, when people don't give you enough chance to speak?
Yeah, because I think if people keep in mind the fact that dementia progresses and issues of people change all the time, certainly over the last year, I'm aware that my own speech has slowed, and that quite often I'll have word finding difficulties, and that other people, the non-dementia people, tend to feel a bit uncomfortable about silences, and so kind of rush in to speak. And it's like, you know, so it's that, like you said, giving us a chance to actually find the words and get the sentence out. And also kind of in relation to that, I'd just like to say about in social situations, that be aware that you don't kind of put us in uncomfortable situations of maybe expecting us to introduce other people, because I might be sort of with 2 or 3 other people that I know, but my ability to come up with their name might not be all that great, and it's really embarrassing when you have to say, turn around to someone that you know quite well and say, oh, sorry, what is your name?
Yeah. So Julie, when you've been put in a situation like that and you get embarrassed, how does that affect you and kind of the rest of that situation? What happens after that?
Certainly knocks my confidence, and it affects my enjoyment of the occasion for a while afterwards, because I can't kind of let go of that moment. Maybe other people will just kind of have laughed it off and moved on, but kind of I keep holding on to that moment, so it does affect my enjoyment of that occasion.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anne-Marie?
Yes, darling.
Do you have any difficulties in, you know, what we've just been saying?
Oh, gosh, yes. The kids today's talk so fast, right? I have to ask them to repeat it in English. Like, you know what I mean? And then accents sometimes, if they've got a very broad Scottish accent, I find it very difficult to concentrate. And well, because of my previous profession, accents didn't bother me.
Right.
You know, when you're a landlady in Blackpool, right, you got them coming from all over, especially Scotland and Wales, and so you get used to the different accents and that. But nowadays, if they've got a broad accent, I have to now say a little slower and in English, please, especially like my daughters. Like, I look at them and they say, you didn't understand a bloody word of that, did you, mother? And I go, no. Like, you know, try saying it one word at a time. Slow down. You know, what's the rush? You got to be somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, and like that, like, you know. But yes, it does knock your confidence when they look at you and then they say, you didn't hear that, did you? Are you going deaf? And all things like that. And it does time to time, it's great. Even me get down on it, like, you know what I mean?
I'm going to say that, you know, in some ways, I might be making an assumption, but, you know, you're quite kind of brave and confident and will say, can you say that again, please? Whereas some people might not have that confidence to say it and can end up...
I've not always got the confidence, darling. This is an act because I'm very insecure.
All right.
Therefore, I put on the brazen act, because if you look very insecure when you're a Blackpool landlady, well, you wouldn't last 5 minutes. So you have to put on this persona, right? This shield, this armour, whatever you want to call it, and come out all guns blazing. So yes, even I've got a softer underbelly, shall we say.
Oh, but it just brings on the point, doesn't it, that we shouldn't make assumptions about people, and that, you know, just because somebody comes across as being, you know, really articulate and quite confident, that actually they still need time to, you know, process what's being said to them and get their words together in order to, you know, put a sentence together. I'm not just a sentence, but have a conversation with somebody, especially when there's that toing and froing of conversation. And I think when we get together at festive periods like Christmas, there's often lots of conversation going on at once, isn't there? Michael, I think you've talked about that, even in, you know, such as our support groups or our experts by experience activities, that, you know, when there's lots of conversation going on at once, how does that affect you, Michael, please?
I'll lose the plot. If too many's talking, it draws you away from the main subject. Even though they mightn't be talking to me, say we're in a group meeting and we're having a discussion, and then somebody on the next table are there talking about something, I'll lose I don't know what we're talking about, because that noise has distracted me. But also I wanted to mention what Julie was saying about people not giving you time to speak. I find sometimes I have that issue, but somebody will finish my conversation, and that really winds me up. I hate that when, you know, when you're trying to find the word and then somebody will finish it, and then it finishes up. Then I finish up. I don't speak, you know, so that the rest of them will be asking questions, or they'll be doing a quiz, and I'll just sit there. I start thinking, well, what's the point? Yeah.
So that has a really adverse effect, doesn't it? And I bet there are people listening today that think they're being helpful. I've probably done it myself, trying to, you know, find the word when you think somebody's struggling. And I think, I don't know, Julie or Marie mentioned earlier that, you know, you give a pause and it sometimes feels an uncomfortably long time, but actually when a person with dementia is working really hard to think of, you know, what's being said to them, what they want to say, that pause is not actually as long to you. And again, I hope I'm not making assumptions.
Well, it's actually, I did go through it with a speech therapist, and the way she taught me was, when you're actually saying something, if there's a word and you're struggling to explain it, you know, you can't get that word out, just take a pause and think of another word which means the same thing. So sometimes I'll sort of look away and I'll be thinking of another word which is similar to the word I was trying to say, and then that's when somebody else will jump in and finish my sentence.
Yeah, it must be so frustrating. Thanks. That information from the speech therapist is really interesting. Yeah. So think of another word that's similar.
The only trouble is sometimes you come across a word and there isn't one that's similar.
Like a crossword. Yeah. Thank you for that. Kit and Julie, have you got any thoughts on this?
It's really just giving people time to come back with the reply that they're expected to give. And when there's a pause, People, you don't expect people to jump in. Just give that time, be patient, because that reply will come ultimately.
Yeah.
So really be patient with people and understand, try to understand what they're going through.
Yeah, thank you both. And Julie H, I think you were trying to speak as well.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
That's Julie.
Yeah, the a particular situation with me is with all the COVID this year. I was supposed to attend my eldest daughter's wedding this year, which hasn't happened, of course, because that couldn't happen. And so it's been put off until, fingers crossed, hoping it will happen in May next year. But so I've for the whole of this year, I haven't seen my kids. So it will kind of be new me that they're being presented with.
Gosh.
And also when we do meet, and it will be at the wedding, it will be in precisely those difficult surroundings of it being very busy, lots of other people around, so, and you know, having to, obviously it being very busy, we'll only have a short time to chat together because they'll be socializing with other people. So it's a very nervous time as to how that will kind of happen, and my confidence about that event. Obviously it's something I'm really looking forward to, but my confidence around that event and how I will manage when that comes along.
Yeah, gosh, some real food for thought there. So the next time you meet with your family is going to possibly be at one of these big festive occasions, and you will have, you'll have changed and your abilities will have changed. Tough times, yeah. Gosh, thanks for sharing that, Julie. So yeah, lots of thoughts there on how, you know, conversations can be more difficult, and about, you know, how people need that extra time, and how, you know, trying to second guess a word for someone can be quite off-putting, even though I know it's really tempting to do it. But yeah, some really interesting thoughts there. So it brings us on to the festive table, and yeah, you might have all been watching Kirsty Allsop or Nigella, and it's all about, and Jamie Oliver, it's all about the festive table now, isn't it? And, you know, thinking about your meal that you're going to prepare, and thinking about how you're going to trim your house up and how you're going to trim your table up. But the festive table can be a really overwhelming place for a person living with dementia. And again, you know, people with young onset dementia often look so well that people forget that they have these difficulties. So, you know, we had lots of discussion about this in the Pathways group. So we talked about how, you know, tables at Christmas particularly, but also other festive periods, can be really overcrowded because, you know, we like to get out our best cutlery and our best wine glasses, and there's a water tumbler and a water jug, and, you know, there's this salt and pepper pot and the mustard and the cranberry sauce, a nice gravy boat that doesn't look like a gravy boat because it's in the shape of a Santa in his sleigh. And, you know, we often have a wreath in the middle, or some sort of foliage and candles. And it can be a really confusing place. You know, you're adding white bottles of wine and Christmas crackers to that onto a patterned tablecloth, and you can understand why people find it really difficult. So we thought, you know, don't overcrowd the table. There's no need to put all that stuff on it. You can still make it look nice without all that stuff on it. And particularly, I think Michael will relate to this, and I think it was possibly yourself that, you know, brought up the subject, Michael, was about making sure there's contrast between the glassware, so the wine glasses, the water tumbler, the water jugs, the plates and the table. And often the table is a fancy tablecloth that might be, you know, deep red with gold stars on it, or we might even throw some table confetti in there. And, you know, it might be a tablecloth that's got holly leaves printed on it. And then we've got, you know, fancy coloured plates and napkins and wine glasses. And often these things blend in to that tablecloth. And some of the things like the, you know, the snowflakes on the tablecloth, or the prizes out of the crackers, they can look to a person with dementia like they need to be picked up or they need to be eaten. And then imagine your embarrassment when you've picked up something that actually came out of a cracker and you've bitten into it, and the horror you feel when you realise it's not to be eaten. So put things out in stages. There's no need to put it out all at once. You can't, you know, eat your pudding at the same time as your main course. Well, you might be able to if you're hungry. But really, you know, we don't need all that stuff out, do we? And explain what you're putting on the table as you do it, and say where you're putting it. So, you know, this is the gravy and I'm going to put it to your right-hand side of your plate. You know, this is a glass of red wine here, and I'm, you know, going to put it at such and such a position on the table. And put food on the plate. Don't expect people to serve themselves, even though it's quite trendy to put everything in tureens in the middle of the table and tell people, you know, as we do in Yorkshire, dig in, help yourself. If you're having to stretch across the table, navigate past wine glasses and Christmas crackers and candles, and serve yourself when you're not quite sure what it is that's in the dish, and put it and get it on your plate when perhaps you've got difficulties with hand-eye coordination, or some of the difficulties that, such as Michael mentioned. It can be quite, you know, a scary place and really off-putting. So serve the person, and you can use my little trick, which is to describe what you're putting on the plate as if it's on a clock face. So, you know, your roast potatoes are at 12 o'clock, your turkey's at 15:15, your pigs in blankets are at past, and your Brussels sprouts, so you can avoid them if you like, are at 1/4. So, you know, just most of us, even if we don't use it, we remember that analogue clock face. And that can be helpful to some people, but then again, everybody's different, so it might not be. So, Michael, do you have any thoughts about, you know, dining in front of other people, overcrowded tables, etc.? How do you go on?
It got to the stage where I didn't want to go, not just Christmas, it got to the stage where I didn't want to go into a restaurant. It's because they put everything on the table. You've got wine glasses, which is a problem for me because I can't see the stem. You know, the actual bottom piece of the glass, I can't see that. So to me, it's floating in midair. So if you put red wine in a wine glass, to me, that wine's floating in the air because I can't see the stem. But the biggest issue for me was a white tablecloth and a white plate. I just can't see the plate. Right.
So do you have any kind of things that make it easier for you? Any suggestions to people?
Well, for the like of PCA, if you've got a white plate, put a dark coloured tablecloth down. Not one with a lot of fancy patterns on it, because that throws you. Yeah. Just a plain dark coloured tablecloth and then the white plate on top. Or if it is a white tablecloth, a dark coloured plate, which is the other issue. A white plate, it's hard for me to see white meats.
Right.
And turkey chicken is a white meat.
Yeah.
So it's actually hard to see it on the plate.
It's a really good point. So would it help if it was on, for instance, a red plate or a black plate or a dark blue plate? Would that help?
I think it would, yeah.
Yeah. Are there any colours in particular that are better for people than others? Somebody's trying to speak, Anne-Marie?
Yeah, I was recently in Tankerton Hospital, which is near enough a geriatric convalescent type hospital. When I had sepsis and what have you. Anyway, they had earthenware, right, because of the weight, and it was blue, right? And they did it in blue because they found that no meat or vegetable is blue. So therefore, any foods would show up on the plate because they had a high percentage of people with dementia, and more food was ate when they ate it off of a blue plate. Now, I'm not saying it was navy blue. It was a nice, what I call a nicey type of blue. Like, but because no food is blue, that's why you have blue plasters in catering, because they will show up, you see. You can see your carrots, your white meat, your brown meat, etc. And they said that more people were eating off of them. Plus the weight of it, if it's too light, because sometimes when you can't coordinate and see it, I've ended up trying to cut something and the plate's moved because it's too flimsy.
Yeah, yeah. Really good point. And yeah, and it's interesting about blue, isn't it? Like you say, there's no food that is naturally blue. But I do know from my work with people with dementia that different colours suit different people, and that, you know, yeah, interesting. Thank you for that. Somebody's asked if, you know, what are people's thoughts on when we do start to integrate again and interact socially? So when we get back out to perhaps meeting in, you know, being able to go to restaurants and pubs or meet face to face, what are people's thoughts on, and I know we've not got much time now, but when we do go back, things are going to have changed, aren't they? Has anybody got any thoughts on that briefly?
I'll be honest. I'm actually, there was a time where I was looking forward to it. Now I'm not. Because as I think I said earlier, I don't like being in crowds. I don't like being in a group of people. But I don't think it's because I'm scared of catching COVID. I actually think it's part of the dementia. There's too much distractions for me.
Yeah, yeah. So do you think that you're actually kind of not looking forward to us all mixing again?
Yeah. I think it would be okay if there's only a couple of people. You know, if there's 2 or 3, I might be able to get around that. But if there's a whole, I don't know, say 10, 12, 15 people, it'll be too much. I think it's going to be too much for me.
Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting. Go on,
Marie. I do believe we've become desensitized in so much as that because we've been isolated and alone for coming on for 9 months now. A lot of people have got underlying health conditions apart from dementia. So therefore they've had to shield or keep indoors for their own safety as well. That we've become, it's the norm now. And so therefore, I went out to Tesco's this morning, and honestly, because of it being the time of year, it was absolutely heaving, and I didn't like it. Now, I'm not normally scared of crowds or anything, but I think because we've been in our homes and we've been on our own and that for so long, but I don't think we'll ever go out into crowds again.
So has anybody got any idea about what might help, might make that easier when we do start mixing again? Maybe a lanyard. Go on, Michael.
I wonder, would it be breaking yourself back into it? So when you go out, just meet a couple of people, and then the next time introduce another few people until you get used to the big groups again.
Yeah, yeah. So do it gradually, bite-sized chunks.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's nearly time. Well, it is time to finish. So I'm going to hand over to Tessa, but thank you, everybody.
Oh, thank you so much. There were so many excellent tips coming straight from your personal experience, and yeah, so many things for us to look out for that will be just helpful for people that we're gathering with. And I hope everyone, all the attendees, have taken all sorts of valuable insights from this session. I definitely have. I hadn't thought of quite a number of the things that you've gone through today, so thank you. I wanted to remind you that to look out for the next webinar that's coming up, which is on the 20th of January. Research priorities, what's important, what matters to you, and why get involved. That's what we're looking at then. But for today, we'll be sharing the presentation and sharing the recording in the next day or so. And in the meantime, thank you very much to the panelists again, but have a peaceful festive period, and thanks very much for attending today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.